Are you ready? I'm going to talk fast. If you listen fast, we should finish at the same time. Last week, I wanted you to know that you can hold your head high. You can stand tall. You can read things in this book, and even when the world around us contradicts it, you can just have a little smile in the back of your mind saying, you know what? Sooner or later, the world will catch up. Romans chapter 1, this particular spot is referring to what happened in the antediluvian days before the flood, and it explains a little bit of what was going on. Read it with me and think it through. The invisible things of God from the creation of the world are clearly seen. How do you see invisible things? Well, it's like the Holy Spirit. Jesus was talking about the Holy Spirit to Nicodemus. He said, you don't see the Holy Spirit, but you see what the Holy Spirit does, like the wind rustling the leaves. Here in Romans, Paul is saying, you can clearly get to know and understand and learn about God based on what is seen, being understood by the things that were made, even his eternal power and Godhead. This is why I loved studying science. Biology. Oh, I just loved looking at how things worked and were made, studying the human body and how all the different systems work together, studying the cell and figuring out how there are these little taxis that take things around, and there's roads on microfibers, and there's powerhouses and coffee houses, there's industries. It's like a miniature city with all these amazing things going on. The cell is complicated. By studying that cell, any thinking person is going to say, somebody made this thing. It's just too complicated. Verse 21, because that when they knew God, they glorified him not as God, neither were thankful, but became vain in their imaginations, and their foolish heart was darkened. These are the people that lived on the earth in a time when they could walk up to the gates of the Garden of Eden. They could see angels at the gate, the Shekinah glory. But they neither respected or wanted to connect with God. Their foolish heart was darkened. Verse 22, professing themselves to be wise, they became fools. This is the verse that I really want to focus on today. Evolutionists may be incredibly good science, but they have bought a party line that is foolishness. It's crazy. No one would ever accept it if it was talking about anything else. No one walks up to a TV and says, this doesn't have a maker. You wouldn't even look at the chair you're sitting on without saying, yeah, somebody made this. And yet, scientists will throw their intellect away and become fools when they look at the results of God's creation. Verse 23, they changed the glory of the incorruptible God into an image made like man, and to birds, and four-footed beasts, and creeping things. I want to call you to a higher intellectual standpoint. I want to call you to have something that you can believe that makes sense. It's really summed up in this word. Somebody made this place. Somebody designed this. Last night, early in the evening, I was watching the wars of these little robots. These little machines that people make, and then they do battles. Some of them have these spinning things. Some have hammers that come down. They have wedges. They have tires. Some of them have flamethrowers on it. It's so exciting watching the battle of the bots. No one is saying, oh, where'd you find that? Well, I was walking through the woods the other day, and there was this rock, and it was sticking out of the rock, so I just broke the rest of the rock out, and it came with a controller. Who would have imagined that? No one is saying those things didn't come from science guys, serious nerds. They've got battery packs, flamethrowers, things that will go under their opponent and flip them upside down. Nobody is going to say there's no design. These just happen. And yet, the world around us is so far in advance. The complexity, the durability, the ability to procreate, deal with disease, to swallow the line that we just happened, we humans, To swallow the line that an amoeba just happened, you're going to have to put your brain on pause. Scientists with their doctorates and double doctorates and tenured professorships and deep research projects poo-pah on creationists as though they're brainless. I want you to leave here today knowing you don't have to say, I'm an idiot, I'm a Christian, I'm just going to go take my brain and bury it in the sand. These evolutionists, they know so much more than me. Just understand that these evolutionary scientists, most of them are taking someone else's word for what they are accepting. They never really thought it through or found the evidence for the evolutionary things they teach and preach and believe. They've just trusted someone else who told them that that's how it was. If you do the science, the research, you're going to find one after another assumption that is not intellectually satisfying. Evolution is not intellectually satisfying. I'm going to prove it to you in just a few minutes. First, I'm going to do a little bit of philosophy. I want to talk about creation. God bringing the universe into existence. It's not that creationists have all the answers. It's that we admit it flat out. We don't know how. We have hints of why, but what we do know is who. Someone did this. Someone. The cool thing is, why I put this in this order, is we have a book that gives us answers, not to scientific details. That's why it never fits to be an arrogant intellectual. Be humble. This is the best explanation I've found. That's keeping your brain turned on. God brought the universe into existence. That's what this book teaches. Now, what is the implications of that? Well, with God being the creator, I'm philosophizing here. You have hope. You came from somewhere, you're in a sticky situation, but there is someone who knows how to take care of this situation and get you somewhere. There's hope. There's worth. You're not just smart slime. It's that someone's in charge. He knows what's best, and he lets us in on that information, and you're going to find happiness, fulfillment, security in that information. Purpose. You are here for a purpose. Your day-to-day decisions matter. I love the fact that morality is something that God gives us. You as parents gave your child a gift of morality. It's what we parents do. We teach them right and wrong. Where did we learn that? We got it from higher and higher levels. Ultimately, you see, this is why I had to start with the scriptures, that they're legit. Because when you take the morality from this, you have something to share. What about this thing, control? Who's in control? Who do you want to be at the dials and switches of the universe's main computer? Who do you want there? We want God. Why? Why God? Not just because he's an amazingly smart God, amazingly gifted, wise, creative, lover of beauty. He's an artist, not just because of all his abilities, but because of his character of... You see, when we think of security and happiness in this world, we need to go right back to the fact that God's center is love. So when we come to a world and we're looking around, Romans 1 would say, if you use your brain and look at the world, you're going to see love blooming in every bud, in every spire of grass, in every cat that snuggles and comes near to you. Let's just think about the implications. These are the things that a God-based world has. Even in the presence of sin. Even in the presence of sin, there's mercy, there's equality, there's justice, there's kindness, there's protection, there's compassion, and this is just a partial list. Even in the midst of sin, because God is the originator and the maintainer and the redeemer, these themes that bubble out of love are going to fill the creation. I'm going to philosophically go the other direction. What does evolution have to offer? Look at the definition of evolution, the theory that all living things are related. All humans are related. The Bible would say they are separate kinds. Trees and hippopotami don't come from the same ancestor. That's different. Each one was specially designed by a creator as itself. Gradually change over time? Yes, absolutely. Every living creature is gradually changing over time. This is scientific fact. The fact is, if you're alive, no matter whether you're a bacterium or a paramecium or some kind of multicellular animal, you are changing. It's called adaptation. You change as your environment changes. The critical point that is proven, that is a fact, is that these are small changes. We call it microevolution. Small changes that are reversed as the environment flops back. They never result in a trans species. They never turn a hippopotamus into an elephant. That is the gross exaggeration of evolution. Evolution has been proven micro adaptation, but there is zero evidence of macro evolution. One creature becoming a new kind of creature. More on that in just a few minutes. Gradually change over time with those who outcompete others, dominating. This is the basis of the change that results in the world around us. Organisms change into other organisms and kill, defeat, push to the side the weak. What do we call that? Survival of the fittest. What are the implications of this? If you're going to be evolutionary, you've got to apply it to everything. And if you apply it to everything, all of a sudden you realize, wait a second, we have 5 kids. One of them is not quite as fast a runner, so we're not going to feed that one. We're going to push him out of the nest and concentrate our reserves on the most healthy one. That would be completely evolutionarily justifiable if evolution was true. But that's not what we do as a society. There are some who would say, no, after you're 85 and you can't walk, let's just wipe you out. And babies that are not perfect, let's abort those. And, well, you know what? If your ethnicity isn't what is desired, well, we'll just gas those folks. If you take evolution to be the truth, then you cannot be angry at Hitler. Because what he was doing, ethnic cleansing, grows straight out of evolution. In fact, if you go back to the origin of species, slavery was encouraged amongst the lower races. Evolution and racism are bed buddies. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. So when it comes to hope, evolution, what hope is there? Basically, the hope is work the hardest, get the most toys, and push other people out of your way. Yikes. What about worth? How much worth is a human here today, gone tomorrow? I don't know. Chop them up, send them as dog food. I mean, people aren't worth anything. There's no inherent value. Power, well, he who is the strongest wins. Purpose? What's your purpose as a human being? If you don't have something special to offer, you don't get to breed. Sorry, guys. I was expecting a little bit more of a reaction on that, to be honest. Morality? Where does morality sit if evolutionary thought is king? Do you realize that if evolution is going to affect our society, then if you can get away with it and you get ahead, it's free game. The whole court system doesn't make any sense. And who's in control? Evolutionary speaking, who's in control? The powerful. How do you feel about living in a society where it's the rich and the strong, the powerful, that are in control? Our society is an awful lot like that. That's because of sin, not because of design. And do we really want to purport that? Here's a partial list of the implications of evolutionary thought pervading the whole world. Ethnic cleansing. Evolutionarily, that's survival of the fittest. Genetic weeding, where we go through society, and if you have this bad chromosome, if they found the gene that causes diabetes, and you've got diabetes, you don't get to breed. Or worse, we just cash you out. How about this one? Corruption. What's wrong with corruption? Evolutionary speaking, the bullies are in charge. Do you really want evolution to rule in our society? Violence? Evolution is a very violent philosophy. Racism, war, all-out war. As you think about this, whose character does this sound like? Let's put both lists up. Mercy, equity, justice, kindness, protection, compassion. Is that what you want society to be like for your children? Or do you want to have your children evaluated in the evolutionary sense? And if they don't cut it, ethnic cleansing, genetic weeding, corruption, violence, racism, war. If you are going to accept physical evolution, you've also got to accept philosophical evolution. And if you're going to accept philosophical evolution, then you have to be ready for our society to change. And it's going to change in favor of the strong. The weak, not going to inherit the earth. Do you see why we have to turn our brains on and say, well, wait a minute. The implications of evolution are not implications that I'm willing to take on. And then the ultimate blasphemy. Yes. The ultimate blasphemy, something called theistic evolution. This is the idea that God used evolution to create the world we have. Can you imagine God as a painter using the paintbrush of extermination of races, the destruction of the weak? If he was a sculptor, using the sculptor's trowel to wipe out the weak. No justice. Can you picture God using the very tools of Satan? Because that's what death is. And here's the biggest problem with theistic evolution. You've got the chaos, the violence, and the destruction of creatures long before sin entered. You cannot put evolution in the terms of macroevolution and God in the same sentence. They don't compute. And yet many Christian churches endorse, accept, sustain, teach theistic evolution. No, it's just not acceptable. It's just not acceptable. As creationists, as Christians, we're told we're the ones that have to put our brains on the side and stop thinking. We're told that we're the ones that don't have scientific expertise. It's not the truth. You can't just read what they write and say, oh, yeah, well, that's in a book. It must be true. It's just not.